Hi everyone, welcome back. In the previous guide, I showed you how to set up a basic Rails app that interacts with Claude using the Claude-Ruby gem. But the examples I gave you were very rudimentary. Basically just tell me a joke, then print out the response that Claude gave us. In this video, we'll expand on that with some more detailed examples. If you haven't yet seen the first video, then you can find it here. I've also provided a link to it below. Also, if you're enjoying this series of using Claude with Ruby, then please subscribe to my channel below. Right, let's take a look at some of the options that can be passed to Claude to impact both the level of detail that you'll get back and the cost of the API call. Models. The thing that will have the biggest impact of all in your Claude API calls is the model that you choose to use. Claude has 3 classes of models, ranging from Haiku, which is the cheapest and fastest, to Sonnet, a balanced model, through to Opus, which is the smartest but most expensive model. Anthropic progressively release new model versions, so it's always best to check what is available and to choose the best model for your particular use case. If you don't specify a model with your API call, then Claude Ruby Gem will use a default model, which at the time of recording this video in July 2024 is Claude 3.5 Sonnet 20.24.06.20. Claude Sonnet is a balanced model which aims to compromise between intelligence, cost, and speed. But since Claude 3.5 Sonnet is also the newest model, and as the only 3.5 model, it temporarily has the highest intelligence according to benchmark tests. This will likely change once other 3.5 models are released later in 2024. An important thing to note here is that there is drastically different pricing for the different models. By drastic, I mean by a magnitude of 60. Claude Haiku is very cheap at only 25 cents per million input tokens and 1 Slon 25 per million output tokens. It's also very fast. This makes it a great choice for real-time chatbots, for basic summarization of large amounts of data, for quick sentiment analysis of social media posts or news articles, or for jobs where cost is the main restriction. Claude Opus, on the other hand, is 60 times more expensive than Haiku, and it's also slower. That makes it not a great candidate for chatbot applications, but an excellent choice for drafting blog posts and news articles, for analyzing complex data sets, or for performing complex reasoning or calculations. Claude Sonnet fits in between Haiku and Opus on cost, intelligence, and speed, and is a good general use model for many applications. With Claude Ruby Gem, you can specify the model like so, or you can use one of Claude Ruby's predefined constants such as model Claude smartest, model Claude balanced, or model Claude cheapest. Temperature. Now let's take a look at the temperature option. This option determines the randomness that's injected into the response. In Claude, the allowed temperatures range from 0.0 to 1.0. The default is 1.0. A low temperature like 0.0 will give a more deterministic result, which is good for analytical type answers, or for when you're testing out other options and want a consistent baseline to compare against. A high temperature like 1.0 is better for more creative or generative tasks, like generating blog post ideas or creative writing. You can specify the temperature like so. Max tokens. This option allows you to specify the approximate maximum number of tokens to generate before stopping. Note that it's just a guide, and Claude's response may contain less tokens than what you specify. Why would we want to specify the max tokens? Well, it's good if you're wanting to reduce your API spend, since output tokens are 5 times more expensive than input tokens. It can also be used if you want a more concise result. But note that when a low max tokens is used, then the response may be cut off mid-sentence. So this better used in a research context rather than for presenting live results to an end user. Here's an example using the max tokens option. There are more options that can be explored, but they're only relevant for more specific use cases. Conversations. Now I'd like to introduce the concept of conversations with Claude. In our earlier examples, we provided just a single message to Claude and got back a single result. But Claude allows us to pass in multiple messages for different roles in a conversational context. This not only helps guide Claude towards the type of response that we want, but it's also important for building chatbots, because API calls are stateless, with no memory of what's previously been discussed. Claude supports the roles of user and assistant. System messages are handled separately. The Anthropic API guide shows an example with multiple conversational turns, and we can do that with Claude-Ruby gem like so. We define an array of messages hashes, where each one has a role and a content. The first message should use the user role, and the second message should have the assistant role. You can repeat this as many times as required to form the conversation memory. Another example using roles is to put words into Claude's mouth, so to speak. Here we partially fill in the assistant's response, and Claude will respond accordingly. That's all for now. Join me in the next video where I'll go into detail of some natural language processing tasks with Claude and Ruby. Please remember to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet. See you next time.